Hi, everybody. My name's Emily Bialowis. I'm from the Isaac Walton League, and this is your Philadelphia Salt Watch Kickoff. With me today, we have Kevin Roth from the Pennypack Ecological Restoration Trust. I got it all. And Lindsay Blanton from the Wissahickon Valley Watershed Association. Is that right?
Yep.
And David Bell, who is one of our volunteers from Saltwatch. So I just want to explain a little bit of logistics. If you haven't used this platform before, we are in a webinar format, so we can't hear you speaking, but you should see a questions panel or box, and you can write in your questions there, and I'll be able to see them and we can discuss. So I'm gonna go first. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, then I'm going to make it in presenter mode. Hold on.
And are we recording this training?
This is all recorded, yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily.
No problem. Okay. There we go. Like I mentioned, my name is Emily, and we're talking about Winter Salt Watch today. So Winter Salt Watch started in early 2018 because this was the scene outside of our office. I work in Gaithersburg, Maryland, and this was the turn into our office. And that is a big pile of salt. And you can't see it because there's so much salt, but that's sitting on a storm drain. And that storm drain goes into the Muddy Branch, which is the creek that runs through the property at our office. So we were, kind of slipping and sliding, turning into our office every day, going over this. And our intern at the time was getting really upset about it and wanted to go and clean it up himself. But you can see this is you can't see it here, but it is a quite busy road. So he called the city and the county, and they said, that's not our responsibility. And he wrote letters to the editor of his local paper and of the Washington Post, and they were printed. And he tested the water in Muddy Branch, which is the creek that this storm drain goes to, and there were really high levels of chloride. And he did eventually get it cleaned up by calling the Maryland Department of the Environment, but it was a really frustrating experience, and one that highlighted to us that this was a big problem, and that it was probably not just happening on our road, it was probably happening everywhere where winter was. So we thought about what is the best way that we can highlight chloride as a water quality issue in the winter months. So Winter Salt Watch was born. So our goals for Winter Salt Watch are to raise awareness in the general public about the connection between road salt and stream health, and to identify hotspots of chloride in fresh water. And more so now, and this is something we're working on building out resources for, but we want to advocate for smarter applications of road salt by sharing results with private landowners and local and state agencies, and trying to get people to make some change in their behavior. So if you're attending this, you might already be involved in Salt Watch, or maybe you're new to it, but there are reasons why we care about chloride in our fresh water. There's a wildlife impact. So if you are living in a waterway and you're a freshwater creature, chlorides, salts are going to affect you. So it will affect fish, but it will really affect the small creatures. The macroinvertebrates, plankton, and microbes are going to be really sensitive to chlorides. Back in April, we did a webinar that Kevin was actually a part of, and we had a speaker, Dr. Jackson, I believe, from Stroudwater Research Center, who spoke about the impact to macroinvertebrates of chlorides. That was really interesting. Vernal pools, because that's a place where chlorides are going to concentrate in a pond, and that can affect the frogs or salamanders that spawn there. And then also mammals, like if you take a drink of salt water, you're not going to like it. So mammals can't drink from high chloride streams either. And then we as humans, our drinking water can be impacted by chloride. So it's not the same as chlorine. We know that chlorine is used to disinfect our drinking water, but chlorides are different, and they are not, I think, ever removed at water treatment plants because it's a high cost, and we are, by definition, supposed to be drinking fresh water, and that means there's no salt in it. So our treatment plants aren't designed to deal with this. And something else that we like to mention is just that salt can be corrosive in water, and I don't know if it's the only cause, but a major cause of the Flint, Michigan water crisis was that there was salt in the water that they switched to, and then it corroded the lead pipes. The pipes had been there before, but they hadn't been corroded, and that's how the lead got into the water. So it can be a minor issue for health, like you have to change your heart medication in the winter, or it can be major if there's high enough chloride levels. So if you order a salt watch kit, this is what you get in the mail. You get 4 chloride test strips. You get sample testing instructions, which are on the back of the postcard with the chart, and Kevin's going to explain all this to you. You get data uploading instructions, which are on the back of the other card here. You get this conversion chart, and that's how you're going to read your strips, which you get 4 in that bag. And that's everything. It's going to come in a standard envelope. So when should you monitor? You should monitor before any winter storms if possible. You guys are in the Philly area. I don't believe it has snowed there yet. We work with people in the Midwest. It has already snowed there. So, you know, we still tell people try to get as early a baseline reading as you can. And then throughout the winter months, so after salt has been applied to the roads, and then after there's the first warm day, thaw, or if there's a big rainstorm after a snow event. And then we typically say try to get another reading in the spring after the next rain event in like March or April. So you participate. We use something called Water Reporter. That's the app we use, and that's how we collect all of your data. And it's an easy app to download to your phone, and it basically means you take a picture on the app, and that is how you upload it. If you have trouble with that, you can do it on your desktop at home, and worst comes to worst, you can just email me your picture and tell me where you were. But I think you should be able to figure out the Water Reporter app, and I think at the very least, Kevin could help you with that. So this is what a really good salt watch report looks like. You can see the whole chart. That's what we need to read your strip, because some strips, the strips go with the chart. So you put in some information about your testing, you know, where and when, and if there was any sort of weather, and then make sure to take a picture with the whole chart. So this is from you guys. You got 92 results in the Philly region. The red is where they were higher or considered to be toxic levels, over 230 parts per million. And the green is below 100, and everything else is in that middle area. So it's higher than it should be. Like, it's higher than natural background levels of chloride, but it's not considered dangerous. This is from 2018, 2019. And then this is from last year. And last year, you see there's a lot more green. You might remember it was a pretty mild winter. I don't know what to expect this year, but we have seen some reports places where it hadn't snowed yet and they were getting readings of like 123 parts per million in the mid-Atlantic area before it snowed at all. So these things can accumulate in the waters over time, and it can get into your groundwater. So that's why we care about this. There's more chlorides now than there were before. And this is just to give you an idea of what you're a part of. And I do want to take a moment to just credit all of you, actually. We started this in like February of 2018, but I think we really were able to see the Salt Watch program as a success when your community picked up Winter Salt Watch and just kind of made it blow up and got media attention, and all of you participated. And that was when we saw that our model should be that we go to local organizations that are on the ground and partner with them on Salt Watch. So thank you guys. So taking the reading is just the beginning. There's actions you can take. If you find high levels of chloride, you should let someone know. A lot of you are associated with watershed groups, so that's great. Tell your watershed group you're a part of. You should call your city or county if you see high chloride levels or if you're encountering oversalting. They might not be particularly helpful, but it's still good for them to get those calls because they mostly get calls that say there's not enough salt on the road. You can write a letter to the editor of your local newspaper. We have a template. I don't know about the organizations you work with, but they might have some sort of guidance. And we also have a template for writing a letter to your state representative. So I can share that with the network of folks you have. And then we also have some resources but that we're building kind of a resource library to share best practices for using road salt in your community with property owners and with community managers. So this is where you can order your Salt Watch kit and find all this other type of information, iwla.org/saltwatch. Okay. I just want to show you, this is the website, iwla.org/saltwatch will bring you here, and you just fill out this form, and we will send you your kit. I'm going to show you guys just one other thing. If you want to see your results, where your results are coming in, this is on the same page. You're on Winter Salt Watch. If you click on Salt Watch findings here, my computer loads a little slow. This shows you the current map of where we have Salt Watch results. So that's you guys, and you can use these to zoom in. If you want to see past years, you can look at the last 2 seasons. Okay, let me look at questions, and then I'm gonna pass it over to Kevin. So someone asked if you can use leftover strips from last year. You can. You should check on your card. There on that conversion chart, there's going to be, actually, let me show you. On your card, you can see right here in the middle of the conversion chart, there will be an expired by, like a use by date. So if it's too late, don't use it, but otherwise you can. And you can let me know if you just email saltwatch@iwla.org. You can let me know if you want to order multiple kits that you are sure will be used. I think we're ready to hear from Kevin.
Kevin, do you want to go next, or should I go next?
For Kevin or Lindsay? Kevin or Lindsay, and then we'll have David.
We'll go on webinar if you want. I'm just kidding. You can go ahead since that's what we had scheduled.
Okay. Emily did that.
Yeah, I can share that.
Thank you.
Do you see that?
Yes. So yeah, this is an infographic, so it's like long, so it doesn't fit in the whole screen. But so we wanted to talk a little bit about how this monitoring piece is part of a larger initiative that we want to do across the greater Philadelphia area, which is to actually kind of advocate and raise awareness, but also shift behaviors. So we talked amongst all our organizations about how we might do this and maybe a plan for a couple years of moving different people. So the first year we thought it would be great to focus on residents, as that's the largest land use in all of our watersheds, and you know, you're the starting kind of moving the needle and monitoring and controlling actions at your own home. So we intended for this to kick off last year, where we would kind of get residents to better understand best salting practices and kind of spread the word. And then it just didn't snow last year. So we're doing a redo, take 2 this winter. Fingers crossed that we get some snow this year. But what we've done is create some kind of educational materials that are, you know, really winnowed down to the specific things that we want you to do as a homeowner. And we made them really easy to understand and easily shareable. So we'll be sharing these on our social media and Instagram and all these different things. We also can, you know, share this with you. You can print them out or share with your neighbors, but we're asking you to do 3 things as a resident of the watershed. One is to just use less salt. And this was a challenging thing to think about as we were asking ourselves, well, what is the, you know, best practice amount of salt? So we did a lot of research and found that it's about 1 handful of salt that you would scatter per square yard. So a 3 foot by 3 foot square is about 1 handful of salt. There are other best practices around salting. So you wouldn't want to just, you know, throw salt on like a pile of snow and hope that it would melt the pile of snow. You do kind of want to shovel early and often. Just keep the snow cleared from your surfaces, and then really just using the salt to prevent, you know, ice from forming, not to prevent you from having to shovel. Sorry, we still have to shovel, unfortunately. But yeah, so using your salt judiciously is the first ask. The second ask is, if you have salt left over on your driveway or sidewalks, you know, we definitely want you to use salt. Don't want people slipping and falling, especially people who have sidewalks, and there are a lot of people in the community who are using your sidewalk. Certainly use salt. But if there's extra salt left over after the winter storm has passed, or after, you know, there's threat of like that melting and freezing happening on your sidewalks or driveway, there's salt, you can sweep up the excess rock salt and just use that rock salt again. So that's your like home directive. We have had a lot of people asking us about like who's gonna go, like Emily was saying at the beginning of the presentation, who's gonna go sweep up those gigantic piles of salt that are left either in the road or in like commercial parking lots. If you want to be the vigilante that goes and like never has to pay for salt because you just scoop up these giant piles of salt, like, more power to you. But basically the ask is just, as a resident, if you use too much salt or if it just didn't really get like melted in, please just sweep it up. Because in the aftermath of the storms, you know, there's rain or whatever, and we just don't need that extra salt going into the waterway if it's not serving like a purpose for de-icing. And the third ask is to just share with your friends and family, your neighbors. You are kind of our first line of, you know, you're at the creek, you understand watershed science more than your neighbors and family and friends. And so, you know, kind of being the front line of, you know, they can ask you questions and you can kind of tell them about your experiences at the creek. and what excess salt does in our freshwater systems, really just being kind of that ambassador and spreading the word. If you see that like person on your street that uses tons and tons of salt, maybe just go over there and have a socially distant conversation with them about salt use. So yeah, we will really be pushing this campaign this year when it snows, be reminding people to think about their salt use before and during the storm, and then asking people to share the message. So this is part of probably a multi-year outreach campaign that we'll be doing, focusing kind of moving up the ladder throughout our communities, talking to residents, but also talking to, businesses, industrial complexes. A lot of times they'll hire out someone to do all their salting. So there are these really large third-party companies that come into these massive parking lots and put down a lot of salt. And then also, of course, the municipalities and counties that are salting the road, PennDOT, just kind of thinking through all the different stakeholders who are using salt and slowly expanding this group of people who are thinking about too much salt being used and advocating for the freshwater streams. With that, I'm going to turn it over to one of our volunteers, Dave Bell, who has done just such advocating.
Okay, hi. I'm having trouble with audio, so Emily, could you maybe just put up something pleasant looking? And
Yes, I
I'll
can.
just go ahead and talk through
I did want to share one thing because of what Lindsay was saying. On our website, we have a whole what you can do page under Thoughtwatch. So you just clicked what you can do, and we have a bunch of resources here and suggestions for home and some flyers and things you can hand out to people. So you can check that out. I'm going to leave that page up while you talk, Dave. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine, thanks. Okay, so I'm in the Tucanee Creek watershed, and I guess it was January of 2019 when I noticed a township salt truck go by and just cover the streets with salt ahead of a forecasted snowstorm. And it was so much salt, it turned the streets white. There were chunks of salt all up on the sidewalks and all. And then the snowstorm turned out to be just a dusting. And I called the township public works department, and the director said, oh, no, that didn't happen. They never salt before a storm. And I said, but it kind of did. I took pictures, and he insisted it didn't happen, but he offered explanations for why this thing that didn't happen might have happened. And that included that when the truck was going by, the driver lifted the big cab of the truck to get the salt going toward the rear, and by accident dumped a bunch of salt. And that really didn't happen. I saw the truck go by, and the street was evenly covered. And I said, no, that was not possible. And then his next theory for why this thing that didn't happen could have happened, there was some rogue truck driver who went out and salted the streets and who doesn't work for them anymore. And he doesn't know who that might have been. But he said, even though it didn't happen, I should let him know if it happens again. And we kind of left it at that. Then that fall, my watershed group in partnership with others offered the winter salt watch training. So I took that and I did the baseline measurements in November of last year, and I waited all winter for it to snow, to have a snow, salt, rain, melt kind of event, and that didn't happen. So I just went ahead and used the rest of the strips in March, April, and June. Just the things that I thought about were in picking sites. I picked one site that was downhill from the township maintenance yard, and the big school, junior high and high school complex where there were big parking lots there that presumably get salted when it snows. So I picked that site because it was downhill from the township facilities. And then I picked another site that's actually at the edge of a large parking lot for a factory on one side, and on the other side is a park. And I checked both those sites. At the first site downhill from the township complex, I had got readings that ranged from 167 to 251 parts per million. And then at the site by the park and the parking lot, I got readings that range from 43 to 145 parts per million. Also, after I gave presentations on the winter salt watch to my township environmental advisory council because it wasn't really an issue that was on their radar. So I did a presentation on why salt is bad for the environment and how it gets used, and that there are alternates and other methods that can be used other than just covering the street with salt. And I made sure that the township manager's office got a copy of the presentation as well. And then the neighboring township heard about that and they asked me for information on this too. So I gave them the information on the winter salt watch. So we were able to get the information out in 2 townships, and hopefully people will understand that there are citizens who are watching this and will be more responsible this year. That's all I've got. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to take them.
Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome.
We have gotten a few questions, but I think I'm going to let Kevin go first, and then we're going to answer the questions.
Okay.
We can all answer the questions.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate you stepping on, and that's exactly why we do this, is for people like you to step up and make a difference. So thank you. We also want to thank the Isaac Walton League of America, who Emily works for and runs the Winter Salt Watch. Without them, this program wouldn't be possible because of funding and time and everything else that goes involved with it. So thank you, Isaac Walton League. I have 2 parts in my presentation. One, I'm going to go through after you get your test kit in the mail and what to do with it. But I'm going to start with how we got started with Winter Salt Watch. It was exactly 2 years ago today that the Philadelphia area saw a kind of a freak snowstorm that came out of nowhere. Screen just changed, just me now. So this freak snowstorm came out of almost nowhere. Nobody was prepared for it, and the roads never got salted. However, I work for the Pennypack Ecological Restoration Trust, and part of what we do is protect 4 miles of creek of the Pennypack Creek. We have sensor stations along that creek monitoring every 5 minutes. And when the snowstorm happened, our conductivity levels went from about 600 microsiemens to over 2,000 microsiemens in less than a couple of hours. So I noticed 2 things from that. One, it never salted the roads. And 2, the chloride levels in the creek were skyrocketing. Why was that? The roads were never salted. Where did this come from? Well, instead, we were Salt Watch. We found out after we got the results going from 600 to 2,000, we realized there was a problem. It wasn't the township. How do we get the community involved, and how do we get our citizen scientists activated? So after doing some research, we found the Isaac Walton League, and they were actually just starting the Winter Salt Watch. So it was perfect timing for us to realize there was this problem of salt, and we could get the community involved via this program that was already established by the Isaac Walton League of America. So 2 years ago to this day is when we found out, people like you and me, strip malls, households were putting way too much salt down, and most of the time people didn't know it had negative effects on the environment. So that's where Winter Salt Watch was born, and I really just again thank you, Isaac Walton League of America, for funding this program and keeping it going. So with that being said, we're 2 years in now, and we have, as you see, a lot of people activated and involved in Philadelphia, and we're hoping to keep that going. So more citizens know that they can do something about this, and then move it up to the townships and then PennDOT, just to get more people aware and to find alternatives to help this problem. So one way that you can help, as you already learned about tonight, Dave participated, and we went through all the steps. So how you participate in winter salt watches, you go to the League of America website, as they showed before. You fill out that little bit of a form, your name, your address, and they send you this. I got this actually in the mail today, and I ordered it just last week. So it was perfect time for me to go out and get my baseline testing. So after you get that in the mail, open it up, and everything that Emily said was in here is in here. You have your instruction sheet, how to participate. And then you have where you put your data, where you put your test strip up next to see exactly how much chloride you have in the water. And the step-by-step instructions. So when you get this in the mail, it's foolproof. It's so easy to participate. So once you get that in the mail, you order your test strips, they come in the mail, then you go to your creek site. Many of the people on this webinar already are stream keepers or creek watchers with their watershed organizations. If you want to get involved in one of those, just reach out to Emily or myself or Lindsay. But yeah, most of you already have your stream sites. So what you need to do is take your envelope that you get in the mail and a little mason jar or a little cup or just something that you can get water with and collect it and put your test strip in. So once you got those things and you head to your creek site, like I said, I went today, I went to the Paper Mill Bridge along the Pennypack Creek, and I'm going to do all my sampling there. So once you get to the creek, you open up your test strips, you take one out. I have one right here. The fresh one, you'll notice it's fresh because of that, see that bright orange line? This test strip has not been used yet. So you get your test strip, you get your little jar. And with your little jar, you're going to want to put that into the creek 3 times. So you're going to fill your jar up, swirl it around, throw it out, and repeat that 3 times. That way you have one clean glass, and then everything that's in the glass is representative of the creek. So you wash it out 3 times, and you leave about an inch left. So you see that in my jar there. Yeah, get your inch, going away from the camera. And you simply drop your test strip in. If you have too much water in there, you can see that the water would go above the test strip, and that would ruin it. So you want to have about an inch of water, simply place your test strip in there, and enjoy the scenery for about 10 minutes. I did my test strip today, and it took about, I think, 5 minutes or so. But it was nice because you're out the creek and you can enjoy that. So as you wait for your test strip to go, you're gonna wait, like I said, about 5 minutes, and then I cheated. I brought the one that I did for my baseline testing today, just to show you, so we're not sitting here waiting for that to turn black. So like I said, the new test strip will look orange. But when you're done, after it's been in there, you're gonna have a solid black line. And you see that black line. So that means your test strip is done. You don't take it out of the water until it turns completely black. After your test strip is done, you simply pull out your handy dandy identification guide, which has all the Quantab units, which tells you how many parts per million are in that water. So, and then the next step is to simply line up your units, and bam. So this one tells me that I have 2.2 Quantab units, which you go to your chart, you find 2.2, and on this chart that says it's 46 parts per million. So there we go. I have my whole test strip, 46 parts per million. That's my baseline data. And as Emily said before, you repeat that process 4 times throughout the year. So you get your test strip, and then if you go while you're at the creek, is the coolest way to do it, in my opinion, is to take a picture of this with the creek in the background. You know which site you're at and what the reading of what the Quantab units are of the reading, which tells you the parts per million. So after you get your picture, like I said, it's more fun to do it at the creek, but a lot of the times you don't have service at the creek. So you take your picture and you go back home where you have internet. And then here you have two options. I know some people don't like to use phone applications. So the app that you use to upload your data is called the Water Reporter. It also has a website, so you don't need a smartphone to do this. It is easier to do with a smartphone because you go to the creek and you can take your picture of this and upload it right to the app right there. So when you open your app, it's called the Water Reporter. I have it open on my screen here. It has a little blue, you want to do a new one, it has this blue, I'm going to click that. And then it brings me to the upload screen. It won't be any easier than this. See, it brings up the location automatically. And then we have a space to put comments, which for my comments, I simply put what the date was, what time I was there, what site I was at, and which test this was. So it was my baseline test. And then after I got my results, I wrote them in the comment section. You can also add that picture that you took so everyone can just simply see what your results were. And it's proof that you got those results. And the other thing is what you want to do when you first join the Water Reporter app, you're going to want to join the Water League of America, and you're good to go. Like I said, you download the Water Reporter app, make your profile, join Isaac Water League of America, and then once you get that done, you can upload all of your data right to that app.
Kevin, can you just show that again?
Yes, this part?
The part that, so there's, sorry, so you see where it says Isaac Walton League of America, there's a dot that you can select, and that way, if you select that, you're good. If you select that, then that's being shared with us easily and directly. If you forget to do that, that's okay. We can still find it, but it's a lot easier to find if you click that dot.
Perfect. So yeah, make sure you click that dot so it gets shared and put on the Isaac Walton website and goes to the collective data. And then once you're done all that, you have your location set, your comments placed in there, and you have your image. You simply go to the top and you click there's a check mark in the top corner, and boom, your results are uploaded. It's that simple. You get your envelope in the mail. Well, I'm going to go step by step again. Order your test strips. They come in the mail. Go to the creek with your little jar and switch the water out 3 times. Place it in the jar. Should be about 1 inch of water. Wait a couple minutes and then take your picture and you have your readings. It's such a simple way to be involved and it's really good data. So anybody can get involved. It's so easy to participate. It can be good for a whole classroom of students, or it can be good for your neighbor that has a creek in their backyard. Anybody can participate and all of the data is useful. So again, just thank you, Isaac Walton League of America, for this program. And I hope all of you can participate and have a good time with it.
Thanks, Kevin. And if you use up all your strips, you can just email us, or you can fill out that form again, and we'll send you another set of strips. So if 4 times is not enough for you, you can feel free to order more, but try to use them all before you order more. So I have a few questions here. So Lindsay and Dave, you want to help me answer them?
Sure.
And Kevin too, but Kevin, you're already here. So there are a couple questions here about the salt that's being used. So what is the most environmentally friendly salt I should purchase? And is there a decent alternative to salt products? Those are the questions. I have my answers, but you guys can answer first.
So we've definitely heard of salts that use like a beet additive to lower like the amount of the chloride that they would need, but it's still a salt. In the research that we did, it was like there are other things you could use, but generally like the best solutions for actually melting ice are the salts. So we thought an easier ask is not to ask people to switch or find some salt alternative, which might not be carried at all stores. Like the easiest ask was to just use it more sparingly. Kevin, I don't know if you have other thoughts on that.
Just like Lindsay said, we'd love to be able to endorse a certain product at the moment, but none of our organizations are comfortable in doing that. Just because there's so many other ones, we don't know what their effect on the environment would be. So like Lindsay said, the best thing you can do is follow those 3 steps she put up earlier. Is simply use less, sweep it up when you're done, and it's not the be all end all that a lot of people think it is. And Emily?
Yeah. I agree with that. Something really important to note, if you are buying salt for your property, the packaging the people who package the salt products have no regulation or responsibility to be truthful on their packaging. So you might find packages for salt that say salt-free or environmentally friendly or eco-friendly or pet-friendly, and they're just rock salt, or maybe they're magnesium chloride because they're not sodium chloride, and they're claiming to be salt-free because they're a different type of salt. But basically, if you're buying something that is a de-icer, you can read the package, and it will, in the fine print, say, what it's made up of. But chances are you are buying a salt, no matter what the package says. So I agree with Kevin and Lindsay that what you want to do is mostly be sparing with your salt use. The frame of reference we use for amounts, and we took this from Wisconsin. We've been working with some folks in Wisconsin and Minnesota. They have really great resources. Actually, I just want to share that website with you guys so you can see some of their resources. It's called Wisconsin Thoughtwise. And they have really great, explore this whole website. Wisconsin Saltwise, they have excellent things under Take Action and the True Cost of Salt. I just wanted to share that. But their go-to, what we're using, is that you should be able to use 1 mug of salt, like a coffee mug, on your whole 20 feet of driveway, because the salt should be that effective. And it's more about the timing of when you put the salt down than anything else. Someone else had a comment here, which is that it's worth noting that at very low temperatures, rock salt is not going to melt ice. So if it's below 20 degrees Celsius, not Celsius, if it's below 20 degrees Fahrenheit, it's not going to, rock salt, sodium chloride, it's not going to melt your ice. Magnesium chloride will, but you don't necessarily have that on hand. But that's something to know if you start to have a really cold winter. Typically in our corner of the country, it doesn't get quite that low, but that's just good to know. So it basically, if it does get that cold, your sodium chloride, your rock salt, isn't going to do anything, and will just get washed away without doing anything.
And adding more won't help.
Exactly. So this is another question. It's from someone who left, but I think it's still worth it for everybody. How can they share this message? Like Lindsay, I think your message. How can we share your message? Instagram or Facebook posts, or their social media posts that someone can go and click share on, or what can they do?
Yeah, so all of our organizations basically have like a little toolkit to use every time it's like forecasted to snow. We'll be sharing these, and that's the perfect time to get a reminder out to like your social media connections. It's not like during the storm, because no one's gonna well, maybe they'll be on Facebook, but remembering to salt less and kind of getting these things into people's heads. When the storm is coming, that's when we'll be sharing. So, if you're following us on Facebook or Instagram, Twitter, we'll be sharing resources. And again, we also have things that are like printable. Some of the things that we're sharing on social media are printable, but also we have like kind of little postcards and that longer infographic PDF So if you wanted to like walk down the street and like put one in, not in, but like on all your neighbors' mailboxes, you're welcome to do that. If you want to share with, local groups, if you have one of those next door sites or any kind of neighbor sharing platforms, schools, EACs, really anywhere you can think of where, you can connect with other residents, you can share these on or offline.
I made the information available from Tacony Frankfurt Watershed Partnership. They have a good card with information, and also Wissahickon has a great card. And I shared both of those with my township environmental advisory council, and they posted it on their Facebook pages, and they also made it available at events that they held just at the start of the season. So I think the EACs are a great way of getting the word out to people in your community beyond your circle of contacts.
I think that's a great idea, Dave.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. We have an online pledge that you can sign and then share with your friends. I believe we're going to launch that tonight or tomorrow, and we'll get that to everybody that was on tonight. I see Lindsay nodding, so that can happen.
Yeah, we have a pledge on, I can't remember, it's like petition.org or something like that, where you would, kind of commit to, doing all those things, reducing your salt and sweeping up, and then you can kind of use it as a tool to have others commit to use less.
Also, we are going to have, you can follow us on social media. We're Save Our Streams. And we're going to have resources throughout the season that we share. So Kevin and Lindsay and everyone in your community, you can share that among your community as well. And like I mentioned, we have advocacy resources that we're developing or we're adapting from the different communities we work with. So like I said, we started working with folks in Wisconsin and Minnesota. We're also working with people in Virginia and you guys. So any resources that are being developed in those communities, we're going to share. We have available to share for everyone to use.
That's awesome.
We got another question, even though what we just talked about, I think was good to end on. Some townships use a liquid salt brine on streets, applying it before predicted snow or ice, which is recommended, and that's the way to use the least amount of salt. Why is this practice not done more widely? Or I guess what can be done to encourage this practice more in your community?
Yeah, so I think this was what we were thinking when we were thinking about how to move different stakeholders in the community, is to start with like each one of you and all the residents. There's so much more buy-in if a group of residents who live somewhere go to their municipality and bring something before them and talk about like what it means to them, as opposed to, our organizations kind of going in and making a recommendation. It's really powerful when it comes as a grassroots effort from their constituents. So I don't know why it's not done more. I would imagine it might be more cost effective. I don't know all the details on that, right? So that's a good argument to use to tell the township they can save money, but also have the residents kind of bring that before them and say, like, this is what we want and this is what it does to the stream. So I think that's our goal. Like, we're going to be moving in future years to, get as many residents to understand as possible. Again, of course, there are a lot of roadways, but also most of all of our watersheds are residential. So if we manage all the roads, but there are still residents with, big driveways who are dumping lots of salt, we'll still have a problem. So tackling all the different stakeholders is important, but as much as you feel ready to do, please, advocate to like local businesses or your township.
Yeah, like
we use
2 years ago that most of this is coming
Kevin,
from
you can go ahead.
Oh,
Kevin, I don't think we can hear you.
okay, they muted again on me. It's all saying that more than 2 years ago, a lot of this is coming from residents. So we start with the residents, make that difference, and then work our way up to the township with more concerned people. I said a lot more, but that was the gist of it.
That's okay. We got a comment from Mary Margaret saying that they were able to work with the Ambler Public Works to engage them in considering when they salt and where they salt, and that municipalities want to do the right thing. They just don't always know what the right thing is to do. I know I keep pushing some Midwestern resources, which I know is a different climate, but this is a problem they've been dealing with for longer than us. So I look to them. And the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency has a smart salting certification, and they do a training every year. And this year, because of COVID, they did it virtually, and it's free for their applicators. And they also have one directed at property owners as well. And that's something we're thinking about advocating for doing in other states. But a lot of what they're doing is just sort of sharing basic information about how it's more cost effective and more efficient to brine, and that using less salt costs a lot less money and causes a lot less damage, not just environmental damage, but infrastructure damage. You know, roads and bridges can get, and cars can get really messed up from even one season of salt. So that's an angle. I know I've spoken with someone at the state government in Maryland about the pilot program they want to do, and they want to do a totally economic infrastructure message to property owners and salt applicators, because I think that's enough. I think that's enough for people to make a change. We might care about it for water quality reasons, but economically, like, it just makes the most sense to use less salt. It's just what people are used to. People are used to seeing salt on the ground and to feeling it crunching under their feet, and that's what they expect to think that it's working. But you need a lot less than you see for it to be working. Those are all the questions we have. If you want to reach out, I'm assuming you found out about this event tonight from someone, one of your local organizations. If you do want to email me, you can email me here, saltwatch@iwla.org. I can answer any and all of your Saltwatch questions, and if you have questions I can't answer, I can try to find an answer for you. Yeah. Do you guys have anything to add?
I don't. I mean, I think we have a really, like Emily, you were saying before, like this group is just really awesome and really hit the ground running a few years ago and got great press, and you've been collecting great data. So just, we appreciate how involved you all are and how much you care about the streams, and just keep it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just like to.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I just like to just emphasize how easy the process is of using the test strips and then reporting. Those 2 cards that come with the kits are even better this year than they were last year, and it just gives you all the information you need. So even if you were paying close attention and taking notes during this presentation, or you forgot to, or you just didn't do it, those cards have all you need to know to go through the process. And it's easy, and it's nice to be part of something bigger that's sponsored by such a great group.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, like I said, if you want to order a strip, it's iwla.org/saltwatch, or you could go to saltwatch.org. And if you have any questions or needs, it's saltwatch@iwla.org. And you're just asking me a question, but I am the eponymous Saltwatch. And if you sign up, you get a monthly email that gives an update with maps and how things are going. So you should be able to you can check the map on our website, but you'll also get a reminder in your inbox to look at that map to see how the chloride in your streams are doing.
Thank you, Emily, for hosting us and for this great.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you to Kevin, Lindsay, and Dave, and everyone who attended tonight. If you want to share this with somebody, it's going to be recorded, and I'll make sure you get it. Okay, have a great night.
Bye.